Sorry for the delay. We are at 6 o'clock, the Department of Public Works. Director Nunes.
Might need to go here because it's a little frosty.
Oh, you're going to have to figure it out. Oh, turn this. Just name and title, gentlemen, when you're ready. Sorry for the delay. We apologize.
Yep, Donald Nunes, Director of Public Works.
Mark Garr, Facilities Manager. Daniel Edwards, Assistant Director.
Welcome. The floor is yours.
All right, so tonight we're going to give you a brief less than 30-minute overview of what happens during a snowstorm. And a typical weekday snowstorm, again, 30,000-foot view. We're not really going to get into the weeds of some of the real specifics, but just to kind of familiarize yourself what really happens. Most of you folks understand when the roads aren't plowed, but you don't really understand what goes on, how to get it to that point, what our staff does, and what we do on a typical snowstorm. So I'm going to hand it over to Daniel, who's going to speak for Highway, and Mark will speak for Buildings and Grounds, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you.
Down arrow. That's all right.
All right. Just an overview of everything we're going to talk about today. From the goal of the snow and ice control plan, objectives, operations and statements of objectives, forecasting, snow and ice control plan procedures. We're going to give you a winter event scenario and go through the process of what we do from A to Z when there's a winter event. Buildings and grounds, operation, park and ban, towing, town-owned public parking, snow event notification when we tell people about the parking ban, how residents can help, and then other elements in the snow and ice coordination plan, just an overview of that. So to begin with, the goal of the snow and ice control plan operations for the town of Enfield, for the Public Works, is to afford the emergency vehicles and its residents reasonable, safe passage, not necessarily bare road surfaces. I know a lot of times residents call because they can't see the road, but that doesn't mean it's not treated. And so we try to make this happen as much as possible. Our objectives, the primary objectives for Public Works during the snowstorm ice event for the town of Enfield is to provide, first, the safe passage for emergency vehicles. We get calls from EMS, we get calls from the fire departments, we get calls from police department all the time, having to go to different places, dealing with emergencies during the snow event. And then our second objective is for the public to be able to, the residents to be able to move back and forth safely within Enfield's 183 miles. I'm sorry about that. Forecasting. We have a subscription with a company called DTN Weather Century. It's a web-based weather forecasting which provides 72 hours or more of forecasting with precipitation and snow total predictions. And then we have a trial basis subscription with another company called Precision Weather Service, which almost does the exact same thing. Then we use internet weather sites. We use the local news channels, 61, 8, Fox, all of them, just trying to pinpoint and get a consensus of around when the snowstorm is going to start and when it's going to stop and what it's going to do. That's what we do for the forecasting. For the snow plan, this is our snow and ice plan procedures that we do pretty much for every storm. And this scenario is going to be for a weekday winter event and the process that we go through. And so for this is going to be a 4-inch snowstorm starting between 5 and 6 p.m., ending between 5 to 6 a.m. First thing we do is we monitor forecasting. We're monitoring forecasts days before a snowstorm because most of the time, we do get hit occasionally with a surprise snow event or something like that, but most of the time it's well in advance that we know snow is coming. So we're constantly monitoring the snow forecast because they change from time to time. The last event that we just had, November 15th, it changed within hours of starting. It went from 2 to 3 inches to 2 to 3 to 5 to 5 to 7 to 8. So this is what we have to deal with all the time. And by the way, every storm is different. This right here is not something that we do concrete the same way every time. Every storm is different. So things could change up based off the timing of the storm. So we monitor the forecast. We talk about the parking ban. We plan it depending on what time the parking ban is gonna start. For this storm, since it's gonna start, the storm is gonna start between 5 and 6 p.m. We would probably start the parking ban around 7 or 8-ish based off that. Just trying to give the residents enough time to move their cars. It is not our intention to have cars ticketed, towed, and moved, but we need them. We need them moved out of those areas, especially the Thompsonville area, so that we can get the snow up. So we send notifications out, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in a future slide. And then we inform PD on what time the parking ban is going to start. We normally get 3 officers. Very rare we get 4, but we normally get 3 officers. They spend most of their time in the Thompsonville area, making sure that the cars are moved so that we can go curb to curb in that area. That area is smaller than the rest of the town, and we need the most help there getting cars moved out of those areas. Next thing we do is we're prepping vehicles. Some of this stuff has happened simultaneously, so don't think one thing is not happening until the other one is finished. We're prepping vehicles also at the same time. What we're doing while we're prepping, just so you don't think we're not waiting until the end of the day to prep vehicles, it depends on what's going on. The last storm we just had, we couldn't prep vehicles during the day because we're collecting leaves at the same time. So we couldn't stop the leaf collection because we just went into being able to take it another day on that Saturday. So that would have bumped us into Sunday. So we didn't want that. So there's certain jobs that we still have to get done. So sometimes we're not able to stop everything that we're doing just to prep, even though we're prepping little every day. But certain things will get done after 3 o'clock. Another things that we do after that is we go through we talk about the storm. We do a safety briefing. We bring all the guys into the break room. We talk about what's going to happen. We talk about what the forecast is. We talk about expectations. You know, we want everybody to stay safe. We don't want anybody having any accidents, and we definitely don't want anybody getting hurt. So we go over this with them every storm. And then we go out and pre-treat. Now, pre-treating is applying the ice control chemicals, liquid or solid, to the road before the snow and ice event happens. It's the use of this technique is to prevent the bonding of the ice or the snow. So we go out there and we pre-treat. Now, this can get tricky based off when the storm is coming and how fast it's going to come in. You know, everything changes from minute to minute and from second to second. For this past storm, and I'm gonna keep using that one because that's the last one we had, we started pre-treating in the sub areas first because the storm was gonna actually start coming in while the going home commute was happening. And it doesn't make sense to put material on the road while the evening commute is going on because it's just gonna take all the chemicals and everything and all the salt off the roads. So what we did was we went and pre-treated the subs first, did all whole sub areas, all the cul-de-sacs, all the dead ends, pre-treated those really good, and by the time we were finished, then we were able to get on the mains, and by that time, the snow was starting. So, you know, like I said, everything changes from storm to storm. Once pre-treating is over, and like I said, this is storm dependent, depending on if the storm is coming in slow enough, we can give the guys a break to get something to eat because they're going to be out there all night long. Stop. They worked all day. They're about to work all night, and then we're going to work them again the next day. So they're going to have to eat a couple times in there. So we try to get that in between the after pre-treating and right before. It's about 2 inches or so on the ground, so that they can get out there and they can have something in their system, so that they don't have any accidents. I've seen people who have not gotten rest definitely hurt themselves trying to stay up all night long or not eat or something like that. So we want to make sure we keep our crew safe. We start plowing around 2 inches. The reason for that is we don't want to plow off all the material we just put on the road. Storms change. Sometimes, the forecast say we're going to get 6 inches and we get nothing. So if we have the material on the road and it's just a little bit of snow, then it'll just melt it off and we don't need to go out there and plow. So we try to wait to make sure that we have something to plow, and so we're not wasting the town's money by putting material down there and then just going right back out there and plowing it off. The extra trucks and the contractors are called in 3 or more inches. It depends on when we feel we need them to come in, so that we can start the process of actually pushing snow. Most of the time, we try, depending on the storm, try to bring the contractors in an hour or so before the storm's going to be over. We also leave the contractors and any extra trucks that come in later on the road when we have to give the guys a break. Because, like I said earlier, the guys got to rest. And a lot of times people wondering why we're not on the road at this time or why we're not on the road at that time is because these guys are not machines. They're humans. I've plowed for years, and I know what it is to be out there on the road and be exhausted because you've been plowing for days. So we're trying to make sure nobody gets hurt, because you don't want somebody with a plow running through somebody's house because we had them out there for 2 days. So a lot of times that's where the lag time goes, but we always try to make sure we stagger some coverage. There's never a time where there's nobody on the road. There's always going to be somebody out there. It may be just a couple of them, but there's somebody out there making sure that if there's an emergency, we can get to them. If something's going wrong, we can fix it. So there's always those times. The crews come back on the road after they get some rest around 3 or 4 a.m., depending on the storm, and they go back out there and they hit the ground running, and everybody go back to their roots. And this is a public works wide operation. It's not just for highway. This stands for B&G, WPC, everybody, fleet, refuse and resource management. All of these departments, all of these divisions within our department, we're all operating, doing the same thing. We're all coordinating together. We're all working together, making sure that nobody's out there getting hurt, everybody's getting their rest, and the roads are being taken care of. After the snow ends, or as Donald would say, after the last flake falls, it takes about 6 to 8 hours, to clean those roads. A lot of times you'll get complaints or calls of us pushing snow back onto sidewalks depending on when the snow finishes. I have a policy that I tell the guys: curb to curb, curb to curb, curb to curb. You're going to always hear me say curb to curb. The reason why we go curb to curb is because we live in New England and it's going to snow again. It's going to snow again. And if we don't go curb to curb or try our best to get curb to curb, every time we don't go curb to curb and it starts snowing, we lose the road. We lose the road. We lose the road. And that's when you have large roads being subtracted down to 1 lanes. It's because we didn't go curb to curb somewhere in a storm. Excuse me. So that's why we do that. And so that takes time. That takes time. And so that's going to be about 6 to 8 hours to do that. And right now, I believe, it's Mark's turn to talk for a little while.
Okay, basically, we're the same on the road-wise with Danny. Buildings and Grounds has 8 plow runs. You can see it's listed here, the Thompsonville streets. A lot of folks think, yeah, we know Buildings and Grounds does Thompsonville, but it's more than Thompsonville. We start at the high school, Enfield High School, and we go to the state line on the west side. And you can see on the other side, we do Claremont Ave, Belmont, and we go all the way from Belmont all the way past the John Street neighborhood, which is Claremont, and we do a small section for highway up on the Willard Ave, Booth Road area. Those are some small roads. So their big trucks can't get in there, so we jump into that too. A lot of times on the radio, you'll hear where the roads come together, the B&Gs and the highways. Hey, can you grab this one because I got to go over do this one. The guys work along together great. So when we hear that the B&G just has Thompsonville, we need to know that it's much more than that. We have other crews in the schools. Municipal buildings, we usually have, during the day, we have 2 sidewalk shoveling crews for municipal buildings. At least 2. We like more, but we just can't do it. You get a storm that's, 11 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, and it's snowing pretty good, but all the buildings are still open. Library's still open, senior center, they're all still open. We need to try to get as many of those sidewalks cleared because we have folks coming in and out constantly. We're lucky enough to work well with the other departments. They know when it's time to shut down. They speak with the manager, and when they shut down, we like to, if we can, drop down to 1 crew, which stays on the police department and EMS. Those are 24-hour buildings. We got to keep on those. Municipal buildings, 15. Schools are 12. When we get into the schools, we have a lot of pickups doing schools. So even if you see schools closed and we're in there plowing, that's because like Danny says, every storm is different. If we plan on getting 6 to 8 inches of wet snow, if we wait till it's over, a pickup truck's not going to push that. It's going to push a few past, and then it's going to stop, and it's just going to keep kicking to the side. Then we lose the parking lots. So if we get in there and do 2 or 3 inches at a time, we won't go back curb to curb on the schools while we're doing that, but we will get as much as we can done. Plus, we need to leave those buildings open for the fire department to get in for emergencies. Our custodians get in to clean around their walks. So, plus in the winter, we have a lot of weekend sports, nighttime sports, school sports, basketball, wrestling, youth sports, mostly every Saturday and Sunday. So we obviously would cancel if we couldn't get them done, but if we can get them done and clean them up, we like to, go as quick as we can because it takes a lot to reschedule a lot of the games. Municipal parking, it's the same thing. We have cars coming in and out of the town hall all day. We try to keep them, the main part open so they can get in and out. And that's it during the storm. Municipal sidewalks, we, after the storm, we'll start with the municipal sidewalks. We'll, areas like the industrial park, open spaces, I'll give you an example, is the Hazardville Park. Those are all our sidewalks on School Street, and Hazard Avenue up by the bank, up by Elm Street. Those are all our areas. We have a small, what we call a 6 o'clock sidewalk list, 6 a.m. sidewalk list. That's not listed specifically here, but those are some heavy bus stops. Areas where there is some walking from JFK. Those areas we like to get ready for when school starts. I usually speak to the superintendent. He usually calls me probably around 4:30 a.m. Wants to know what the roads are like, what our schools are like, what we should do. He suggests, what do you suggest? A delay, a cancellation? We'll give him our recommendation. I will check with Highway. I'll see where they are with their plowing. I'll check with our guys, see where they are with the schools, and he will then call me back. He makes a few calls, some different folks. I know he talks to the bus company because without a delay, if they can't get their buses out, So, and then he usually calls me back within a half an hour, and he says, this is what we're going to do. So immediately, we let Highway know where, you know, if school's canceled, we're not going to, on the B&G part, we're going to stick on the roads a little longer instead of breaking into the schools, and we'll piggyback and get the roads cleaned. Then everybody from B&G will jump into the schools. Once, as Donald said, the last flake is done in the 6 and 8 hours. It takes us about that amount of time also. We can get into our sidewalks. We've cut our sidewalk list down drastically on overtime. All we're doing now on overtime is that 6 a.m. sidewalk list. We don't need to do the industrial park now. If we're going to not start the sidewalk clock, we don't need to be in on a Saturday or Sunday doing the industrial park. We can do it Monday, as long as we all realize that that 24-hour clock after the storm ends just might be 48 hours. But we have to get ours done before we can expect, you know, the townspeople to do that. So that's what we do. Once we're done and we know, Danny and I talk, we get the sidewalk clock on, they make the announcements, the clock begins, and after 24 hours, we start handling the complaints through C-Click Fixed, emails, phone calls. We'll get areas that sidewalk reports that haven't been cleared. Buildings and Grounds usually sends 2 crews, 3 folks each, a guy's writing the tickets, and 2 guys that are clearing the walks. Now, we could have, you know, 25 complaints. If they're on the outskirts, we look at them. If they're on the outskirts, they're important, but if we see one on North Maple Street next to Hazardville School, we're going to do that one first, because we clear the schools first, around the school areas. We just can't go see going out way out somewhere doing a sidewalk when there's sidewalks right next to JFK that aren't done, where the kids have to walk in the street. So that will go until we finish the complaints, and after that we will get into the schools. We'll move snow. A lot of our municipal buildings, as we know, PD's got a small back lot. It's real hard trying to get that stuff, get it cleaned up. So a lot of times we work with the PD. They move half parking lot over. We take that snow, dump it out in the back, and we do that also for schools. We cut down the entrances so people can see when they're leaving. Go to the parking lots. You got the parking lots up?
You go to the, just go to the sidewalk clock.
Yeah, the sidewalk clock is posted on the Notify Me, the website, DPW tweets, the Facebook, and the info line. That is on the front of the DPW page, and it's clicking. So nobody, once it's started, it's available. It's available and it counts down. It's like I say, sometimes it might not be right after the 24 hours. On a major storm, I've been here where, you know, you get 18 inches of snow, and the town manager's office gives us a couple extra days and gives everyone a couple extra days, because you just can't do it in 24 hours.
The next thing we're going to talk about is the parking bans. Real brief, the bans are placed there when there's 2 to 3 predicted 2 to 3 or more inches is going to come. We definitely want everyone to know that we go by the forecast. We know that sometimes the forecasts are not accurate, but I make decisions based off the forecast. That's all I can do. And a lot of times there's backlash when the forecast doesn't happen the way they say it's going to happen, but we're out there doing what we're supposed to be doing. But I'm never going to not make the decisions based off the safety of the town. I'm going to always do it based off the safety for the residents and for emergency vehicles. So whatever the forecast says, that's what we're going to do. In the Town of Enfield Code of Ordinance, Section 8.82, -62 states that we can actually begin clearing vehicles in Thompsonville when there's 1 inch of snow of accumulation. So we wanted everybody to know that, so that if there's complaints, why are we out here so fast clearing vehicles, this area needs the attention because of the roads. It's not anything other than the roads are smaller than everything else. That's all it is.
Okay, next slides are the municipal parking lots. There's 5, they're all labeled. These parking lots, starting with Pearl Street and South, it's for public parking. They can park, that's where we'd like them to park during the snow. What's the next one?
I did.
Sorry. Across, this is Church Street, across from Alden, another parking area. We got his Nantucket across from Corona's Market. Behind the Lamagna Center, that's on Pleasant Street, but it's behind 19 North Main Street. There's some spots that they can park. And the last one is the boat launch, Donald Barnes Boat Launch. Welcome to park there. Now, the only problems that we have on some of these are, one, we encourage them to park there, but it's real tough trying to clean it when they're trying to get out. So a lot of times we'll get in there, we'll do very little, which the only thing we can do, and then a car or 2 leaves, and then we get a call saying you haven't been in that parking lot yet. So, and it looks like we haven't, but when you have a parking lot with 30 spaces and they're all taken, and then we start to leave to go to work, we're back and forth to those parking lots. Sometimes it takes forever to get them clean, because sometimes some of the cars, they leave, and before you can get there, they come back again. So it's not like we're missing them. Sometimes we even have to use some of the smallest equipment we have. We can't even get trucks in there. We use our small John Deere tractors and whatnot to actually go between each car. And but we'll stay on them until they're cleaned. And we'll move snow out of there too. A lot of them are small. We'll, when Danny's crew is down to Thompsonville removing snow, we'll get our machine out there, take where we piled, and just dump it out on the street when his machines are going by, and he'll take it right out for us.
The snow event notification log, this is the log that we utilize every time there's a parking ban or a sidewalk clock. And this is just showing us or indicating that we have gone through all the different channels that we're supposed to go through to notify the residents that the parking ban and the snow walk clock is on. We don't want anyone saying we didn't know. So we have all these different Channel 3, Channel 30, WTIC. Everbridge, we don't use that any longer for parking bans on the snow walk clock, but we did used to use Everbridge for that. So all these sites and all this redundancy, we have 4 more people just in case somebody's out sick or on vacation. There's somebody else who can do these logs to make sure that we're getting the information out. We're getting the information out. Customer service, my boss loves customer service, and we want to make sure we're giving them customer service to so that they have a chance to remove their vehicles and clean their sidewalks. How can the residents help? This is my favorite one right here. I want you to look at that picture right there. That picture right there is what we go through every snowstorm, every snow event. We're fighting the residents. The first thing on the list is please don't put the snow back in the street. Shovel or blow snow in the opposite direction of the street. The snow can go in your yard, ladies and gentlemen. It can. It's difficult to keep the streets clean when we're fighting. We're fighting residents constantly. And there's times that we actually have to call the police department because residents have come after us to give us physical harm. Yes, Miss Gina, physical harm because we're doing our jobs. So that's the big one. Do not park cars in the driveway within 10 feet of the edge of the pavement, because we're coming by. And this one right here is a little funny too. Don't park cars in or over the sidewalks in front of your driveways. You'll go down the street and you'll see a car parked in their driveway, over the sidewalk, and in the street, just so we can't get close to their yard. And it makes it impossible to do our jobs. Don't allow your children to build or occupy snow forts or any similar creations within 10 feet of the edge of the pavement. We definitely don't want to get a call that we hurt somebody's child because they built a snow igloo at the edge of the road. Fences should not be within 10 feet of the edge of the pavement. And we know that some of them are, but they shouldn't be based off, that is basically our area that we need to remove snow. Hold on, I'm looking for something. All right. Remove all non-permanent seasonal items from within 10 feet of the edge of the pavement. And this is a big one for basketball hoops. They're everywhere. And what we do at the beginning of the snow season, we give the guys the routes, and we have them go drive their routes, report back to us for catch basins that may be messed up, manholes that may be raised, and basketball hoops. You would think that it was like a national disaster to ask a resident to remove their hoop off the street. But it is really hard to get residents to move their hoops off the streets. So that's something big. We had a situation last year where a resident wanted us to pay for it, and we sent them through the channels that they have to go through when there's a situation. But it's not supposed to be on the street anyway. So that's a big one. Trim trees so that the branches do not exceed beyond the back of the curb, so that you don't say we're taking down your trees. Put road markers up to help DPW and contractors know where the property lines start. We ask the residents to do it, but we also do it sometimes at areas that we continually have issues with. We'll go out there and put markers up, especially for the contractors, so they'll know where the yard starts. We have a lot of streets in infill that don't have sidewalks, or they don't have curbing, I mean. And so it's easy for the snowplow to go right up on the street, or right up on the grass, or on somebody's yard. So we're trying to avoid that. Pile most of the snow from the driveway apron on the traffic downstream side, so that this will minimize visibility problems and prevent snowplow from redepositing snow in your driveway. It might sound weird, you know, but this is something that can help every resident if they would just put it downstream, so that when we're plowing, you're not getting it right back. You know, it just makes sense, and it just helps us out and it helps them out. So this is how the residents can help. Another element of the snow and ice control plan, this is just a statement that we're in the process of updating our current snow and ice control plan. It hasn't been updated since 2012. So we've included a variety of items. Some are more problematic, like mailboxes and stuff like that. More driveway things that we deal with during the winter event. We're going to present that to our DPW subcommittee, and upon their approval, we'll be bringing it back to the town council. So if there's any questions or comments.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Any questions or comments from the council?
Mayor, I'd just like to say, you know, they're doing hard work all day, and then we task them, or I do, with doing these projects to make these presentations. But I think it's so important because you'll be happy in, you know, a week or two or a month, because this isn't going to just stay rain. And when people start to ask, you know, they address the frequently asked questions. And these are the questions we get when the storms start, and that you'll get, and new council people will receive, and people who've been up there for a longer period. This is a great resource now. We're building our library on our website where you can direct them and say, look, at all of those questions have been answered. You can go to the presentation. We're also going to have them at Town Hall and the Senior Center. Center.
Right.
And this is why we did it. And I can't tell you how many people we've directed to the Woodard and Kern presentation on water pollution control, on the energy study that we did with Honeywell. So we are building quite a library for the citizens. And the nice thing about it is they don't have to recreate it next time. I'm gone, you're gone. Even if they're gone, these can just be updated, and all of the heavy lifting they had to do now will have been time well spent. So I thank them very, very much for doing the job, but also coming here
So
and
to
letting
your
the public
question,
know.
Councilor's Denny's question all the time, with it, like, especially the park and ban information being print at the senior center or anywhere, I mean, I think that's the biggest question everyone gets is the park and ban. How's it? I mean, that's a great piece of information.
We'll put the presentations and we can highlight that.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys get questions. I know we all get questions. On
And like I say, it seems, you know, a little painstaking tonight. It's raining, but once the snow hits and people are looking out and say, well, why aren't they plowing? Why aren't they in my neighborhood? Why didn't this park? This has all of the answers there. So I think it's going to be a wealth of
Have to
information.
be quick. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Councilor Bosco. All right, it's gotta be-
Also, you want people to understand about pushing the snow back on their sidewalk. When they push the snow into the road, the plow is like hitting a brick wall. Back for Storm Alfred, I was helping a friend run a loader down through the streets so they can open them up. And whenever you would get someone that had pushed the snow in the road, it would actually stop the loader. You'd have to dig up and push it. And one person was screaming and yelling at me and waving their shovel, but they were the one that pushed the snow into the road, and it just made a big pack. It was like building a big snowball right in the middle of the street. So, you know, that's another reason why you don't want to push your snow into the road. And secondly, on the snow ban, anyone that really likes their cars really needs to get the car out of there, because once you start getting 4 or 5 inches of snow, they get very difficult to tow and they get very easy to damage.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, you need to get these cars moved sooner than later, because once the plows gone around them, it's going to cost you a lot more money to get that car out of there, because if I got to grab a shovel, someone's paying for that shovel to dig out that car. And so it's another thing, you don't want to damage your cars, bring them up over the snow banks.
Doesn't do good for the pickups that we use, too, when you get the frozen snow.
Well, yeah.
It stops the loader. It sure doesn't do good for our pickups.
Absolutely.
Councilor Ungar? Thank you, Councilor Bosco.
I was wondering, how many actual tickets do you have to write per storm? And the other question is, for the ice control, what's the actual chemical that you put down? Is it salt or something else?
The tickets vary. I can go to last year's. We log them when the police finish at the end of the night. They normally give us how many vehicles they moved, how many vehicles they ticketed, and how many vehicles they towed. So I can get the information for you for last year. And then for the salt, we use salt, and then we pre-treat it with calcium magnesium, calcium chloride. And that's what we pre-treat them with. So we wet the salt as it's going on the road, so it'll stay on the road.
Also, how about the tickets for the sidewalks? Do you write many of those?
We send 2 crews when we have them. Buildings and Grounds does what we can with the ticketing, but keep in mind that we're still keeping the upkeep of municipal buildings and schools. We keep as many guys as we can on snow, but it can go until, I mean, I don't have an exact figure, but it could go until the next snowstorm. We've had ticketing still where you get 5 inches of snow on, you know, the last one that we haven't been to. If we don't get them right away, it's just like if you don't shovel your driveway after a week. It melts, it gets frozen solid, and then we're chipping and banging with a shovel instead of using a snowblower because it doesn't move. We've spent a lot of time on some walks, especially the repeat offenders. So we could get some exact numbers, but I wouldn't want to.
We'll compile that and we'll get it to
Yeah.
Councilor Sakala?
Just really quickly, thank you, appreciate it. I don't think many people, well, maybe some people truly understand how much work it is after a snowstorm or during a snowstorm. And we get so many people who complain about, well, the snow stopped at 3 or 4 in the morning. Why don't we have school? But again, I don't think not everybody understands. And I hope they, go on the website and look through this and truly just comprehend how much you guys have to do, with shoveling and parking lots, not even considering the roads. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate. Oh, sorry, Councilor Denny.
If you want to know, anyone wants to know how the job goes when it's a bad storm, sign up at Public Works to ride with somebody, and you'll really find out what the real deal is. Cars, snow shovels being thrown. There's a variety of action.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you leave it on.
Mayor, the shelter,
Yeah, I think it's a good segue. No?
well, they can't do it in the 5 minutes. If you want them to start and then we could take the break, I just don't want to give them too short shrift. It's not that long, but it's not 5 minutes.
Well, I think we can just
Start.
stop. We can start the regular meeting later. I mean, they've been
Okay,
patient.
all
Yeah.
right, wonderful.
Yeah, go right
I
ahead.
just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure.
Yeah. And it kind of segues right after what you're talking about here, and I know folks have been asking about this, so I think this is a good segue.
And again, while Donald's doing it, just as a preface again, we had to run a shelter operation, a few years back when we had the big October storm and all the leaves were still in the trees. And we were one of only 2 shelters the governor actually came to visit because of how efficient it was run. And we had to do it for quite a few days for hundreds and hundreds of people. So Dawn and Steve and a team have been updating it.
Sorry. You got your time. Sorry about that.
And Damien.
So this is a nice segue from the winter.
Yes.
Because I think we've had questions on folks. Yeah. So I know I'll leave it up to you and.
Yeah, when they sit down, I can give them.
So when you folks ready, you have the floor. Just your name and title would be great when you're ready.
Sure. Sorry, we're switching over. We did go old school so that you all have hard copy just in case we had technology failure. We've
I
seen
like
that
old
before.
school. I like copies.
So today, what we want to do for you is walk through this as we need to, but also to recognize that you may have questions after on everything as well. And as you know, I'm from Massachusetts. I've talked fast anyway, so hopefully we'll get through this in a reasonable amount of time. So I just wanted, this has been whole thing has been a team approach. So we have here today Deputy Director Damien Humphrey, who's helped with a lot of the process. Paul Kappa, who is our CERT leader here in town. And behind me is our Emergency Management Director, Steve Hall from the EPD. So
Welcome, guys. Appreciate it.
what we're going to talk about today, we're going to do together because that's how we've done the work over the last couple of months. So if it's okay, who's clicking?
You
want to click?
No, go ahead. I'm going to get my spiel in.
Basically, what we wanted to do today is just kind of run through the process that we've used, the information that we've gathered, answer any questions that you guys might have as we go through. So Steve's going to give you a little overview, and I think it was pretty funny when I walked in that, where'd it go?
I didn't know you had one. Oh, there it is. So I turned it on.
Oh, see? So technology has failed us just for a moment. I'm sorry. We can get back online if I'll just talk. So Steve's going to give you a little bit of background, but it was funny because when I was going through today to look at the PowerPoint formats, I thought, I should use the one for snow. So it would have been funny because that's what DPW used. But we also use as a reference point Storm Alfred because that was the last time we had to shelter, and there's some very strong emotions about that as well. So Steve's going to give you a little bit of background. And then Damien's going to talk about how we got to where we are today with the review and who's been involved in the process. Paul's going to talk about, and Dennis Silver is sitting back there, but he didn't want any TV time. So he's in the back row. He has questions as well. He and Paul help us coordinate the CERT work. And then I'll walk through as fast as I can, as comprehensively for you, the shelter operations plan, and then we'll deal with any questions and answers. So that's what we had planned for you. We did practice earlier today. It would take about a half an hour, so we'll speed walk for you so you can get to your business. You want
So
my
the
seat?
overview portion of the program, which I'm responsible for, we're going to extremely truncate because of lack of time. Chris started out with what basically I was going to talk about. A very long time ago now, it seems that it was forever in the month of Sundays, but anybody who's been in town for a while remembers very well Storm Alfred. It was a major event for the entire northern part of the state. the old joke I used to use all the time was that there was people waiting 2 hours in line for gas. I threw 12 cans in my wife's Durango and took off to Cromwell and didn't have to wait in line, got all the gas I needed for our generators and such. So it was a localized event, and we were actually really lucky with that event in the sense that the weather cooperated, and it couldn't have been any better, because the 4 days afterwards it was 50 degrees. And if it had been 20 degrees or it had been 10 degrees, it would have been an event of such a catastrophic nature. It would have been hundreds of millions of dollars in damages for frozen houses and pipes, not to mention the cost in human casualties for people who were unable to get anywhere, because if it had been that cold that fast afterwards, all of that wet, heavy snow would have turned to a DPW nightmare. It would have been a block of ice all the way around. We lit up the shelters back then. It was before my time as emergency manager. It was under the care of Dan Vendigny. I was in the EOC for the majority of it as communications director for town, and it went off marvelously. I wish I had more involvement in it so I could take some credit for it, but it was well run. It was well done. As Chris mentioned, the governor had come out to it because not only did we have one shelter, we were running two. It ended up with JFK as our main shelter, and then it was transitioned over to Enfield High School because we ran out of room. 255, Chris? Is that the number I remember? People? People in sheltered?
No, it was much higher. It was over 500 we had, and for sustained days.
Yeah, it was
9 days.
The power was, sheltering was for 9 days. The power was out for around 11. I could touch on the fact that most people like to shelter in place, stay at home, things like that, but an event like that one where it was so long, it's going to be a requirement. People have to take showers. You have to charge your devices. You have to get, someplace to eat. All the restaurants were closed. All the power was out everywhere. So that's the. I could go on and on about the overview, but the fact of the matter is that there are times when sheltering in place will not work. In that case, we have gone to great lengths, and we've had 4 or 5 meetings and an awful lot of time spent on coming up with a rewrite of the shelter operations plan that Don has done a tremendous job with. And without further ado, we'll move into the next phase.
Okay.
Great. Good evening, councilors. Enfield's Department of Social Services is charged with the planning, coordination, and deployment and execution of shelter operations for the town of Enfield in the event of a declared state of emergency that requires shelter operations for town residents. For the last 6 months, Director of Social Services Don Homer-Bouthiet has been thoroughly orchestrating this effort by meeting with various community stakeholders to develop a well-organized plan and strategy. As part of our as part of our review process, we began by reviewing the previous shelter operations manual, which was last reviewed in 2012. We interviewed and had numerous conversations with staff members from the Board of Education, Social Services, Recreations Department, and Emergency Management that participated in the last shelter operation deployment, which was during the 2011 Halloween Nor'easter Winter Storm Alfred. We learned a lot from these conversations, both good and bad, as staff members were able to share what worked and what didn't work during that event. We reviewed documents from the State Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, which is the state's department in charge of emergency operations, to learn what are the state requirements for shelter operations, as well as documents from other local and regional municipalities as we put our plan together. We also met with various community partners from the Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, to establish lines of communication, identify roles and responsibilities, review resources, and identify opportunities for them to assist us in our community education efforts related to sheltering at home and other related efforts. We also reached out to other municipal colleagues for input and resources to help us with this project. We would like to specifically thank Mary Roach Cronin, Director of Human Services for the town of Manchester, and Claire Cody, Director of Senior and Social Services for the town of Canton, for sharing their ideas, materials, and experiences with us. Once we gathered sufficient information, Director Don Homer-Bouthiet examined all of the qualitative data and resource documents to draft a newly revised manual that we believe can meet our community needs moving forward. That it can also adhere to shelter operations best practices and ensure clear lines of communication and operation. The document is currently under review by our community partners and the American Red Cross Emergency Services Director for further input. And now, I would like to introduce Paul Kappa, Community Emergency Response Team Leader. He will give us an overview of what CERT is and their role in the community.
What's wrong there? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, that's as far as it goes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Paul Kappa. I'm the CERT team leader here in town. And primarily what we do is we provide secondary support to the DSS, in particular for our sheltering mission, which is our primary mission. Our secondary and tertiary missions are to provide training for people in the town. So we try to go out and teach people how to shelter in place and those types of things. And we also provide emergency communications. Those are our primary missions. Then we also do some other little missions here in town. Let's see, what else is there? I really don't have much to say here, but we do try to provide as much as we can in volunteer help. We're totally a volunteer organization, so that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so basically what we did is, and Damien, we did a lot of research on this. We stole as much as we could so we wouldn't be starting off on a blank space. And so the plan is actually divided into three separate components. Activation, which usually starts with an emergency declaration that comes from you guys in the town manager's office. Then we go into SWAT team mode, basically, which is shelter operations. And then we have a process now which will be new and meets all the Red Cross and state requirements in terms of shelter deactivation. So I'm going to walk you quickly through each one of those. I did want to say that Chris has been very supportive through this whole process, and without him, we wouldn't be here, and his push to make sure that we perform what we need to do for our residents when the time is ready. Generally speaking, as you know, when we go to shelter, it's storm-related. We haven't had a lot of non-winter storm-related issues to shelter for. One of the things that Steve's working on with the Red Cross is that the town will enter into an agreement for Red Cross. If it's short-term sheltering operations, the Red Cross will handle those things if they're available. I believe from what I was told originally with Storm Alfred, everybody thought the Red Cross would do the sheltering operation, but the Red Cross was everywhere else and they couldn't do Enfield. So, and everybody's right, everybody just went into SWAT team mode, did whatever they needed to do, but they were developing the policy and procedures kind of in the middle of the crisis operation. We wanted to be able to avoid that the next time around. And so, you know, Paul's regrouped the CERT folks, we've worked together to clarify roles, we've defined who handles what operation at what point in time, we've met with the Board of Ed staff. It's their house that we're in when we shelter at JFK, or if we need to go to Enfield High. And so their their food and nutrition staff take responsibility for the meal preparation, and their nursing staff take responsibility for the health. Beyond that, we're responsible. But because it's a declaration of emergency, all town staff are available to perform any duty we need them to do to make sure that we can provide safe and comfortable care 24 hours a day for as long as we need it. So it's kind of a SWAT team. It is definitely a SWAT team approach. Chris was great in making sure that we did the level of detail work that we needed to do, so we've come up with minimum staffing levels. We're in the process, Damien was able to set up staff training with the Red Cross for shelter management certification. That's happening together with the CERT folks January 14th. We'll do that training together. We've already done a walkthrough at JFK, so we kind of know what the facility will allow us to do for sleeping arrangements and meals. We can handle domestic pets, which is different than what the Red Cross would have us do, but we think it's important for families to know that if they have to leave, that they don't have to leave their dog or cat basically behind. So we do as much as we can. This time around, we have social work staff, thanks to you all a couple of years ago, providing us some extra support, so we'll also be able to provide some mental health services we weren't able to provide the last time around. So it'll be a full service, basically, once you enter. We can take folks who just need to shower and come in for meals, and we can take overnight guests as well. We're prepared right now, basically, to shelter about 100 people, which is what the Red Cross basically told us to plan for. We are getting some great feedback from them, and so hopefully we'll adjust the plan, but right now it is in draft mode. One of the things, as we were looking at how to help residents deal with these types of crises, we came across a program that Canton does, and Claire Cody was very instrumental in that, and Chris was great in saying, well, go ahead and figure it out. If you can do it with the existing resources, go for it. So we're hoping to be able to launch a new initiative, which we call Enfield Cares, Community Access to Resource and Emergency Services. And it would build upon what the EPD and emergency responders already do to identify folks who might need a little extra care and services if they have to evacuate or need an emergency service. So we are working now to develop kind of what the format would be, who handles the data, who has access to the data. We'd like to work with IT, and they've been very good about helping us trying to figure out a way to link the information that we have with consent to the other emergency responders, so they know, for example, if there's an 18-year-old child who is on the autism spectrum and doesn't respond well to, movement or whatever it is. So it will be a lifespan approach, and we'll work with seniors as well. We felt that was really important as we want to help people to better prepare to shelter at home, because that's basically, what everybody wants to do. Nobody wants to have to leave if they don't have to. And so we, with our own existing social work staff, will be able to reach out to folks 2 or 3 days before we know the storm is coming, saying, do you have enough medication? If we need to evacuate, do you have an evacuation plan? Things like that. So we want to do a little more prevention as well. We're doing more information, as you saw from the town manager's last newsletter, about helping people to get ready to shelter at home. We're going to be doing more on the information that we place on our websites. All our web pages will be updated with the state-of-the-art information from the State Department of Public Health and Emergency Management Services. So we're trying to get as much information out there and to use technology to help us both inform folks when the storm is coming, how to prepare to shelter at home, and then what to do if you need to go to the shelter, what to take, what you can't take. If you're bringing your pet, you need your his rabies vaccination and the crate and the dog food. So we're taking all those best practices and kind of rolling them up into our plan. In terms of the operations, we will have schedules in advance. Staff will know who have the first 2 shifts so that we can be covered that way. Nobody's surprised or nobody's picked up at 2 a.m. by a police car in the driveway, which are the horror stories that we were hearing from our staff. And so we wanted to get as much preparation as possible. The new component that we would be adding more formally this time is the shelter deactivation, where folks would be coming together to do a walking closing, basically at the JFK, to make sure that school can start the next day. Do they have what they need in their kitchen? Is the building clean enough to have the kids re-enter? So the school district will be an integral partner in this whole plan. Red Cross has provided us access to all the forms they've ever created to do any of this work with, so we were quite liberal, should I say, in adapting their forms to our uses, and they're fine with that. That's all part and parcel now of what the plan. It's all put together into one place. We'll have several staff trained as shelter managers. They will be the key people on the ground at whatever facility we need to operate. We at DSS will also, with CERT and Steve, maintain a presence at the Emergency Operations Center so there can be good communication back and forth. So I think we are, this might be a little bit in the weeds, but we did really have to delve in at a level to make sure everybody knew what was going to happen, are trained in how to handle it, and then where to go if they need an answer that they don't know how to handle. So that's basically what we put together for the plan. What we see as next steps is taking, comments from the Red Cross and other partners, trying to finalize it, doing the training when it comes in January, and then basically moving through with CERT and under Steve's leadership as the Emergency Operations Manager, making sure that if we had to do this tomorrow, that we would be ready to serve the residents of Connecticut. So that's it in a nutshell, and I didn't use my notes because I'd still be talking. So,
oh yeah, you were flying. I give you credit.
First day back from vacation.
Very good.
What questions you might have that we could answer for you?
Yeah, a couple of things you mentioned. One, couple of things that that you mentioned, that JFK is the #1 shelter, Enfield High #2.
Correct.
Okay, so when JFK is not going to be in use, Enfield High will be the primary one. Okay,
right, so we anticipate the renovations happening. So we will have a separate plan that identifies where everybody will be during Enfield High, and we'll do a separate walkthrough there as well.
All right, perfect. Second one, people with disabilities.
Yes.
You said you were going to identify. Do you want people, residents from the town, contacting you? Or you're going to seek them out? I think it's going to be a lot easier if you get the word out.
Yep.
People contact you, whether it's kids with autism, who have major issues with power outages or technology.
Or loud
not being
noises,
used,
yep.
Okay, number one. Number two, elderly adults. I mean, if you're talking about identifying all of these people, we have to get the word out and get it out to them now so that you have their addresses on file in the event of a catastrophe that's going on.
Correct.
And not hindsight saying a neighbor's call or neighbors helping this person get out. We're going to have to know this prior to this.
Right, so there are two things. One is that, and I'll get the name right, where's Steve? The disability, what is it? What's that form that people can complete if they have somebody in their home that needs extra assistance?
For
the PD. The PD form is the
Well,
disability?
we have a disability form at the police department, and we enter that information into our CAD system. We can extract it, so in the case of something that would be a catastrophe, we'd be able to come up with a list of individuals that would be, have contacted us that would be in need of assistance.
Right.
Because I think that's very important. I know that my son is already registered. I'm just saying
Yes.
on
Yeah.
a personal note, that if there is any sort of big issue like that,
Yeah.
I mean,
This is part of the outreach to all of the websites. We're going to be updating these things at social services.
I think another good thing is that you should be contacting the schools and notifying the schools, and that would be an easier outlet to register kids, with disabilities.
Absolutely, and we'll do as much as we can. So I'm not going to hand it to you because it still's draft.
Right.
But what we did is we did develop a brochure that's under review now. The town attorney's taken a look at it for us because we have to have informed consent and to share confidential information, and a lot of this is medical, so we wanted to make sure we did that right with the HIPAA policies and everything like that. But it would be a DSS operation that would be able to share information with the PD and the fire department and the EMS folks. We're just trying to work out the technological pieces to make that happen. But we hope to be able to do this by the end of the year, to announce it, to get the forms out. Our social work staff is working really closely with the school system, and so I don't think that's an issue. We want everybody to know. We want to have everybody have access to this so that we can really make this work. And it just adds another tier of service to what the PD is already doing with that list.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, we stole it from Canton. That's why we're giving Claire Cody so much. I mean, we modified it a little bit, but
Give
we
them a little
did
credit.
steal it. I'm not going to lie.
No need to reinvent the wheel.
Correct. Yeah.
Councilor Ungary.
Your acronym CARE is community access, and what was the rest of that?
To access to resources and emergency services.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and we did share it with the chiefs meeting with the PD, the fire department. Steve was there, and so we did get feedback from them. So we don't anticipate that we'll get to the level where we can't handle this, but we also felt it was an important outreach effort for social services because there's a lot of folks who don't come to us through any other way, but we'll be able to pick up, and oftentimes if you need this kind of help, we can offer some other things as well. Thank you.
Just two quick questions.
Sure.
If anyone wants to volunteer for CREST, where can they? Where do they sign up? Sir, sorry, CREST, sir.
Well,
Sorry
we
about
meet,
that.
every third Monday.
Is there go to the town website?
The town website.
Right.
It's out there. Yeah.
On the emergency management page.
Okay, all right. And you take volunteers all the time, I'm assuming, right? Yeah. And again, I thank you for running with the CARES, because I know a resident asked, there's a direct question.
Yep, that's right.
So I know folks can certainly criticize government, as we should be, but I know you were very proactive about going out and trying to develop this program. And I think it's a great idea. And again, just another piece to what we have, which I know is a very fantastic program to help if in case we have, something, weather event or whatever it may be in this day and age. So I think it's great. And this is exactly what we're talking about informing the public and what's going on. I mean, this is great. Two very informative. I wish we weren't a little late, but two very informative meetings on, and what's going on, how often we're meeting, how often you folks are training, and all the coordination that goes on between all the departments, not only from just within the town side, but of course with the Board of Education as well.
Right.
And Mr. Mayor, we my contribution to this is having her come and tell you all the work she did.
Right.
She's very kind and generous, but this was not on my radar. Right. Truthfully, I lived through it, so I had a lot of experience. So when she came to me, I sort of went, I was thinking about the leaves and the snow and the ice, and then Dawn updated this because having lived through it, basically the manager sent me as public safety director, and I said, when I got to the shelter, oh my God, send the cavalry. And it was really, the plan was called by the seat of your pants. And luckily we had really great people.
Yep.
But when Dawn came and said, we really haven't looked at this since 2012, knowing that it really could happen, that's when she grabbed the bull by the horns with all of these very capable people. And I will just tell you, this will be on the website as well, because the biggest takeaway is going to be to get the information out. The biggest thing we learned is, where is it? And it's JFK for now. 2, what do you need to bring? ID, what do you not need to bring, and that will be on there as well, which is just as important.
Illegal. Don't bring anything illegal.
Right. Medications, because this is running really a little microcosm of the town there. Who's going to give medications? So we need nurses. Who's going to feed them? Custodial. Police, where are they going to be? Wristbands for identification. So it's a very complicated process, but we wanted to get this as soon as we could. It's a work in progress, but I thank them all for their hard work, and our website will have that basic information. If something does happen, at least we'll be able to tell people what to bring, and especially with pets now that it is, mandated that we have that available. But we're much better prepared than we were last time, because last time it was Hail Mary, full of grace.
Do we have enough folks on the CERT team? So the question is, should we send, maybe at some point, if we don't have enough, send out a press release looking for people? Folks are always looking to volunteer.
No, they always need help, and they're a wonderful group. Yep. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Mayor. I was going to as well, and we'll put that out front and center again. And I think when people see the good work, this kind of thing, they want to be part of it.
Exactly.
And it is very, very rewarding. You have a situation like that, the number of people for the duration of the program, it was one of the most, a lot of people, like Dawn said, our theory back then was, the manager declared a state of emergency, then sent police to go take directors and bring them to the shelter. We don't want to rely on that this time. So CERT is imperative, and having other volunteers and people designated now, not in the maw of the storm. So I thank you all for your hard work.
Just one thing, and I think you mentioned it, but when the storm happened, my wife at the time happened to work for the school department, and they were asked and we went to the shelters to volunteer.
Yep.
So I think town staff is going to do the same type of thing if you're able to get there. And
so what we'd actually like to do is get a little proactive because when we did the debriefings with staff who've been part of the process, they were like, one, they were not totally aware it was happening. They weren't prepared. They weren't trained. So we'll take care of that piece. The other thing is they also said that they were never approached. So they didn't know that if it was a state of emergency that anybody could call them in at any point in time and they could be asked to do whatever role. So I just had that conversation with the superintendent. He's having his legal team look at the union contracts on that side. We're working with Steve Belinder and HR to make sure that we can do a memo out to staff saying FYI, just in case we need you. And so we'll get folks to volunteer, ahead of time so they know what their roles and responsibilities would be. And my understanding from the last time is if you didn't go to the shelter and work, that you ended up taking personal time or vacation time or something. So we want to make sure that everybody knows what their options are.
Again, thank you very much for your patience. Go right ahead.
Paul really undersold the importance of what these guys do. Not only are they involved deeply in the shelter operations, but they're eyeball deep in the 4th of July Fest, the Spring Splash, the Jack-O-Lantern Festival. They do an awful lot of things for an awful lot of people in this town. I just wanted to make sure that he got proper recognition for all the stuff that he does. And he's been a right hand to me with the CERT team. He has run it almost exclusively for my tenure, or most of my tenure as emergency management director, and he's done a bang-up job. I just want to make sure you guys knew that.
Yep. He's wonderful to work with.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. All right, so no one's getting a break tonight. We'll call the regular meeting of the Town Council to order Monday, December 3rd, 2018. Sorry, folks, we're 20 minutes late, but the regular meeting's on. Councilor Sakala, prayer, please.
Thank you. Dear God, we seek blessings on the tasks before us tonight. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3, roll call, please.
Councilor Sakala.
Here.
Councilor Crissati.
Here.
Councilor Davis.
Here.
Councilor Denny.
Here.
Councilor Falk.
Here.
Mayor Ludwig.
Here.
Councilor Muller. Here. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Here.
Councilor Ungary.
Here.
Councilor Arnone.
Here.
Counselor Bosco.
Here.
Selectmen members present, none are absent.
Item number 4, the fire evacuation announcement. In case of a fire, please proceed orderly in the back of the building. You can either go left or right out the exit, or to our left, the audience is right. Please go out the doors to the first door to the left, down the stairs, and out the doors into the parking lot. In case of a fire evacuation. Item number 5, the minutes of the preceding meetings. Special meeting November 13, 2018. Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Councilor Falk.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Arnone. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none by show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed, abstentions? We have 10 in favor, 1 abstention. Councilor Bosco. Regular meeting, November 13, 2018. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Councilor Falk, seconded by Councilor Arnone. Any discussion on the regular meeting? Hearing none by show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed, any abstentions? 10 in favor, 1 abstention. The special meeting, November 19, 2018. Do I have a motion by Councilor Denny?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Falk. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none by show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? We have, sorry, who's abstaining? 1, 2, 3, we have 4, 7 and 4, 4 abstentions. I want to make sure I got it right, my math right. Should be good. Regular meeting, November 19, 2018. Do I have the motion to approve?
So moved.
By Councilor Falk, seconded by Deputy Mayor Suzak. Any discussion on the regular, on the motion? Hearing none by show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed, abstentions, again, 7 in favor, 4 abstentions. Item number 6, moving right along. Special guest, John Wilcox, Director of Finance.
Mr. Mayor, in keeping with trying to sort some things out before the budget process, a lot of questions come up are basically in regard to all of the different motor vehicle taxes or sewer use or real estate or EMS bills. How do we bill? What do we collect? What are we owed, and what are we doing to collect the most that we can? So instead of waiting for the budget season, John has been working on this, as well as we've gone to governance. He's come up with some updated policies that will be, in some circumstances, a little more aggressive in collecting monies owed to the town. He'll explain those, and again, that way the public will be aware, and we will put it up on our website, and we'll do a press release as well. It's not drastic, but it's a little more of an increase to try to collect the most taxes that we can.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we're just trying to start with.
And Ms. Della assisting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a whole other policy issue. I mean, Medicare's gonna get its money. Yeah. There's some interesting things in here, though.
Thanks.
So thank you, sir. Appreciate Della and John, and I think this will be a very interesting presentation for both folks on the council who were in the governance meeting, and then of course for the public. So I turn it, you folks have the floor.
Okay, my presentation is not going to be anywhere near as fancy as Public Works was.
They're just too fancy.
The numbers don't lie, John. The numbers don't lie.
Get it to open. There we go. Okay. Like Chris said, we took a look at our various receivables. The largest areas, obviously, are property taxes. That's the biggest source of revenue that we have, followed by water pollution control and sewer use fees and EMS fees. To start with, let's go. There we go. We took a look at our current tax receivable balances, and this is just for the current tax year. Okay, so at the end of fiscal year 2018, that's that top number. The current year receivable was $2 million. Okay, out of a total that we billed of right around 94 million, I believe. Okay. That number does not include the 2018 year receivable carries into, and some of it will be paid in 2019. It'll be a smaller number. That's not included. That's not the grand total of taxes receivable. That's just the impact. That represents about 0.7 mils right there. So basically, the people who are not paying their taxes are being other taxes have to go up higher to fund for the people who are not paying that receivable. This is a very small thing to read, but this is just the real estate accounts. So we did an analysis to try and break down by type of tax to say, all right, well, where's our real issue? Okay. As you can see in the bottom there, that's grand list year 2016. That's the receivable for 2018. Okay. There are 287 accounts from that year, totaling $871,000 that are outstanding. And just a comparison to the prior year, 2015 grand list. This does include all years. This is the total receivable that was outstanding as of August. It was cut by more than half for the next grand list year, and then significantly more for the 2014 year. Okay, the total outstanding, just the tax piece, is $1,506,000. With about $536,000 worth of interest and $14,000 in fees. Those are mostly lien fees. Business personal property. Just to kind of rehash that, there are about 15,900 real estate tax accounts. So this represents about 1.8% of the number of accounts are outstanding. Business personal property, there were 291 accounts that were outstanding, totaling $103,000. There are 2,200 business personal property accounts. These are much more difficult to collect, but there's just not a lot. It includes a lot of bankruptcies and things like that. So when a company is bankrupt, then it's very difficult to collect any of the taxes on them. Lastly, we have motor vehicles. This represents our largest share. There were 3,896 accounts, totaling $607,000 that were unpaid at the end of 2000, or as of August of 2016. I'm sorry, August of 2018. These accounts also are difficult to collect. This represents about 8.7% of the total number of accounts. There's about 45,000 motor vehicle accounts that we bill every year.
So real quick, any questions on that? So what John's doing, we're just laying out for people where we're under collecting. We're not trying to attack anything. We just want, again, it's just simple information until we get to the policy that we went through in governance. So again, it's over a 15-year period, roughly around $11 million roughly under collected.
Right. The total of all three of those screens are about a little over $11 million.
So again, part of that being the generosity of us not going after people, and the fact that we've been in a recession for a number of years. So again, thank you. This is very important.
Okay, so the strategies for collection are different depending on the type of tax. Real estate taxes, our general process is we place a lien on the accounts each May. Okay. Every year there is one tax bill. It's payable in 2 installments on the real estate. If they're not paid by like the end of March, we send a demand notice, and then a lien is placed at the beginning of May on the property. The lien secures our interest in the property. It provides notice to future buyers of the property that there is a lien on that account, and it has to be satisfied if the property changes hands. We intend to continue that practice. Actually, our practice now is if they haven't paid in 3 years, we take a look at the account. And if there have been no payments in 3 years, we will put them on a list to be sold at a tax sale. And then review that account, send notices according to the state statutes on what has to happen. And we will then, usually we collect most of them, in the eventuality that they do get sold. We intend to continue that practice, except for commercial real estate. We don't run into too many with commercial real estate, but we did have one recently, and we will refer those accounts to a state marshal for collection. Business personal property, we file UCC liens with the state of Connecticut every year. Those are done when, June? June. We file those. So anybody who's not paid up until June, we will file the UCC lien. That it does give us an interest in the property that we're taxing, but a lot of times there's not enough value to collect the balance of the taxes. We also refer these accounts to state marshals, and we will be referring those in May. The fee on those is 15% of the tax due if the state marshal collects it. The taxpayer pays that directly, so there's no expense to the town. Motor vehicle. Currently, we've been kind of relying on the DMV to force payment when the vehicle is subsequently registered. They won't register a vehicle, but there's a lot of ways around that. And as you can see by the number of accounts that were outstanding, that's a tough one to collect. What we propose to do is begin referring, we contacted a collection agency and a law firm that specialize in collecting in account collections. I think we're going to recommend going with the law firm in the event that we have to go to the court to collect any of these things. They already have the lawyers on staff to do it. We don't have to use our own attorneys or anything for that. We're going to start referring these accounts in May of the tax year. So the balances that were billed this past July and in December will be referred in May to the account to the collection agency. The reason for that is the sooner we get them involved in it, the better our chances of collecting the balance are. They said they usually can collect about 50% of the balances once they're referred, if they're referred during the first year.
So before, any questions? So here's the change in policy before John goes on. Any questions? This is what we reviewed in governance, so if maybe right now if folks have any questions or comments before we move on. Just want to make sure. This is really the big change in policy that we're looking to move. All right, sorry, go ahead, John.
And as with the marshals, the fee for collection is 15%, and that is added to the amount due, and it's paid by the taxpayer, so there's no cost to the town for this. Sewer collection fees. This one, as you know, we started July 1st of 2014 with this fee. So they're really, it takes a little while to get started. We were also changing our fee structure a little bit at the beginning and what we were going to do. So we kind of delayed the real collection process on this. And I think at the time Lynn was left, my predecessor, she had, I think, intended to start the leaning process and the collection process on these accounts as well. But it got delayed more as when she left, the turnover in staff and me getting my feet on the ground had a little delay there. We began filing the property tax liens on a regular basis last December, I believe it was. So every month we file liens with the tax office. These are a little bit different than the real estate liens because each bill is different. So we have to file a lien in the town clerk's office for every bill to secure the town's interest in that bill itself. So we then began referring, we took all of our older accounts and have been prioritizing them and referring them to one of the local marshals. We had referred $734,818 to a marshal as of November, and they had collected $228,574 through November. So that was a pretty good collection rate from them. Once again, the same process on the 15%. EMS, one of the things that we did, what Aaron and Gary had done, was to, over the past few years, start stressing to them the importance of collecting the accurate insurance information so we can properly bill the carriers. And we had seen evidence of increased collections as that happened. One of the things we allowed residents and non-residents is to negotiate payment plans with our billing service, that's Comstar. And the new part of this collection process is going to be to refer non-resident accounts to a collection specialist that deals with Comstar. Comstar has a relationship with them. So for our non-resident accounts, those are going to be referred directly to that collection agency for collection. EMS, when you get into medical billing, it's very complex. It's very, there's a lot of HIPAA laws that are involved, and it's a difficult task. You need specialists for that. And that's the end of my presentation. Are there any? You have copies of the actual policy. I gave you copies of the presentation. Read the small numbers.
And so just for everyone in the council, so we're getting a little more aggressive with collections, but not to a point where we become a collection agency. So the thought of I don't want to speak for general governance, but and for John, but we wanted to take a next step because I think the numbers speak for themselves here. And from the EMS perspective, we thought we'd see how it would work with non-residents before we start doing anything locally with our own. And then, of course, for the motor vehicle, it just jumped out at us at how I guess the only word I can think is under-collected. And I'll say that only because I got not a better word. And we felt it was fair based on the business property and the personal, the property taxes. Again, to see what the results come out to be, and then whether we make that next step if we want to, again, turn it over to other levels of taxation.
Can
So
I
this,
put in one thing?
go right ahead.
I think that we're seeing a lot more accounts waiting those 2 years for their registration renewal.
Right.
And we're seeing that more and more. Well, I didn't come in July, my registration wasn't due. We're hearing that on a daily, hourly basis.
Right.
And I think that this will alleviate a lot of that outstanding monies. We're collecting it much quicker than the wait for my registration.
Yep. So that was the approach, and thank you. So that just
and as
the
we
background.
said, Mayor,
Right ahead.
I'll just say this council is, I think your plan as mayor and the council to have us go through subcommittees and do a lot of the vetting there, and a lot of the work, whether it's public works or public safety, has been very successful. I think this is an example in what we do. We work it through the committee, and when you give it the nod, then we bring it to the whole council. So it isn't, the ink isn't dry on this. It's for all of you to now review it and make sure you're comfortable with it. So the whole council has an opportunity to digest it, perhaps get feedback, and then once you give us the nod, then we would implement it, and we would, again, do a press release. We would put it on the website. I will just say, I think it's just in recognition, when times are good, it's easier to be a little more forgiving. And when times get tight, as I think sometimes people just need a gentle reminder, as Della said. So we're not really being very, very aggressive. We still have the empathy. We still have, abatement. We still have other areas that we work with people. But this is just probably keeping in line with what most towns have already been doing with the collections and with the law firm. Most are doing that. And and with the EMS, with that one letter to non-residents to start, most are already doing that. So I think it's just representative of the time that we have to be good stewards. We have to be fiscally responsible. And, you know, we always try to find new revenues and how to cut things, but I think we also want to collect what is owed to the town, because as John said in the beginning, when we don't collect it, the rest of our citizens have to pay a little more to make up for it.
It's just simply a question of fairness. I mean, there's a lot of folks who struggle to pay their taxes. It's not just, you know, again, I think everyone who works for a living is on a fixed income. And I just think it's fair. It's just trying to be fair without being heavy-handed. And so it may or may not work, but I think we have to try something. And that was kind of, to Chris's point, the approach where, again, we have to be fair to the folks who are paying their taxes and maybe working 2 or 3 jobs to do that. And I think that's just the approach that we try to take. Councilor Bosco.
Well, thank you. It's about time. Now the problem is we need to go through the old delinquent stuff. I know, and I've been saying for years, and I don't know how far you got, but we have properties, we have monies that companies are out of business, the people are dead, there's no way of collecting them, they've all been set. We have properties over that belong to different corporations that were supposed to be sent over to us, and they never got signed. And I think
clean those up.
We need to clean those up. Yes. Because one of the worst things is when a resident looks at that delinquent list, and it looks like it's so bad that there's so many, but a lot of them are just non-collectible properties that were supposed to signed over to us. And they look and they say, why should I pay my taxes? Look, there's 3 pages of people that didn't pay their taxes.
That's correct.
Which really is true, but it's not, because they're out of business, they're dead, the properties are supposed to be signed to us, and if we don't clean them up, people are still going to look at them 3 pages and say, what do I got to pay for it? At least now you're going to give them a little reason to pay for it, but I think we need to clean the old delinquent list up.
Well, fortunately, this process, once it's in place and approved, it will start cleaning up a lot of it. If you look at the old real estate accounts, for many, many years, we have 15 for steady years. We've cleaned up those old accounts that we're supposed to turn over to the town. We've tried tax sales multiple times on those properties with no success and no bids. Until somebody is interested in those properties, they're just unfortunately going to sit on the tax rolls. We do have the liens in place to secure our interest, however, in the future.
Well, at that point, I think us as a council should be just looking at them and taking them so they're off of the list. I mean, it just doesn't...
It's a policy decision.
Yeah, it's a policy, and we need to do that, because it just doesn't look good seeing them properties on there, because people say, oh, geez, look at this guy hasn't paid off, and at year 20, it's gone, or 19, it's gone, or whatever, so...
It's off the tax rolls.
Yeah, so it just, we need to just make it look like it really is. These things are uncollectible, and we maybe need just to take them. But when you see a list of a lot of people there, it just doesn't look good. Thank you.
Just one thing, not this past tax sale, but the one before when Lee was here, Mr. Erdman, if you remember, we went through a lot of these accounts that our normal policy has been, let's look at 3 years and over $10,000 worth of taxes owed. We went down to basically nothing, any amounts, to try and clean up a lot of those old accounts, and that's where Della said it didn't. You know, there were reasons that we determined that the town shouldn't take those properties, and we can certainly go back through and evaluate them again. But there were definitely some reasons behind those and why we didn't do those properties.
Any other questions from anyone? This is great stuff, and again, being a finance guy, I know this isn't the most interesting stuff in the world, but to every math teacher out there, A plus B equals C. You use it your entire life, and this is a great example of that, where again, I think just understanding the numbers, and again, there is a generosity factor here that from prior councils where again, $11 million could have done a lot of stuff for the town of Enfield. And I think that's, to put that in perspective, I mean, that's why this is so important. This kind of information, again, as we've gone for the last few meetings, this is so important for the public to understand. This is, in my opinion, this is one of the most important things, that they understand exactly what we're trying to do. And if we're not collecting money, well, that does affect our service. I mean, and it does, unfortunately, C means well, then you may have a tax increase. But this is why it's so important. I thank you. I know you spent. I think we started this in August, so I appreciate all the time you put into this, because I know this is a lot of work going back 15 years. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you for again listening to the kind of educating the public on what's going on.
Well, I think it's important. I think the more information we get out, the more understanding they have as to why we're doing what we're doing sometimes. Thank you, John. Thank you, Della.
Thank you, guys. Item number 7, public communications. Again, we ask folks to speak their name and address before they come and speak. You have 5 minutes the first time around. Again, please refrain from personalities. Would anyone like to speak before the council? Mr. Young.
I have some handouts. Of course.
Should I put him on a clock, Mr. Young? It's a joke. Go ahead. Sorry. Thank you. Welcome, sir. Just name and address.
Good evening. George Young, 8 Holly Lane, Enfield, Connecticut. Before I begin my community policing comments on the town budget for 2019 and other items, I want to thank Ken Boulay, a crew chief at the DPW, for his prompt action on what I saw as a safety problem. On November 26th, I went to the DPW on Moody Road to show someone pictures of the island median at the entrance to Freshwater Boulevard Extension, which leads to Carroll Street and St. James Avenue. If you are on Elm Street and taking a left after the arrow turns green to Freshwater Boulevard Extension, the island at night is not very visible, with a faded yellow rim and a very faded green surface on the island. In addition, the black pole on which a black and white sign sits is invisible at night. I suggested a repainting of the perimeter and attaching some form of reflective device to the pole so it can be seen. I saw Ken at noon, and he kind of agreed with that suggestion. I'm sure he then took his lunch break and walk. When I returned to the area about 2:30 in the afternoon, there was a reflective yellow device on the post, which I subsequently noticed was visible at night. Within a couple more days, the ends of the islands had a new fresh coat of yellow paint, and that was also visible at night. Perhaps there are other black posts that could use this simple but effective touch. Once again, thanks to Ken. Now let's talk about the WPC. Thanks to the town manager for having copies of the sewer rate meeting on November 19th available, for which there must have been a big demand because the tax office said I picked up the last copy there on Monday, November 26th. As indicated in the report, the town on March 15th, 2013, elected to have a consumption, which is volumetric-based fee, which is based on usage by the customer. This also supports the comments on March 5th, 2018 report by WNC that the WPCA subcommittee said one of their goals was equitability, ensure all users pay their fair share. As one of the options, the report indicated that a volumetric rate increase would be about 40%, which would be required to meet revenue needs. This is exactly what I had indicated at the October 15th, 2018 council meeting, which I said it would be 40.6% increase, and that would be equitable to all users. I'd like the council and the subcommittee to revisit this area again and eliminate the $7 monthly fixed charge as one additional item or one additional option to charge the money needed to the WPCA on the last page of the WNC report and go back to the volumetric rate-only fee increase. I would also like to know if there has been a reconciliation to verify the number of water users versus the number of billed customers. I believe, as Karen LaPlante mentioned on October 15th, as there is a discrepancy. After a review of the sewer rate meeting of November 19th, 2018. The 2018 financial audit indicates that due to rate reductions by the council, the current rate generates $6.2 million a year. We are now seeing a $230,000 under budgeted based on the 2019 budget. How are we addressing this? The last item I want at this time is to say the June 30th, 2017 annual audit was dated December 28th, 2017. It is now December 3rd, 2018, and I was wondering why the June 30th, 2018 annual audit has not yet been completed, and when is it scheduled to be completed? It should not take 6 months to complete. This information becomes stale after a while. I was informed in October that now everything is done electronically, so the auditors very seldom visit, and if this is the case, we need to push for faster results. That'll be it for now.
Thank you, George. Appreciate your kind comments on Mr. Boulay as well. Jack. Welcome, Jack.
Jack Sheridan, 7 Buchanan Road. I have a few. First, I'd like to thank George, Mr. Young, for what he just said. I agree completely with him. It's too bad that we can't, I mean, to eliminate the $200,000 billing charge between the sewer and WPC for a third-party billing thing is just, to me, a terrific waste of money. The thing that I wanted to talk about tonight, though, was to get back to the JFK referendum. There were some liberties taken during that process that I don't like. We have, for instance, the youth vote. The youth vote and debates that were at the schools had depictions of a sample ballot, and they were highlighted in red, vote yes. And that was done on public buildings paid for by the taxpayers and displayed at those meetings. That's a violation. And I asked myself a question: when do you stop being an elected official on a town council, or is it just while you're on the dais? Or can you step away from that? Because a person declaring himself as a ranking official was on the Enfield website, Enfield Forum, encouraging people to vote yes, which is a violation of the state statute. And the Board of Ed and the council and the building committee, what do? Just when they take their hats off and change positions, they can then go out and form a group to pay for signs that say vote yes? Do they stop being council or Board of Ed or some part of the officials of the town? So that whole thing, and we have things that we talk about how referendums got voted down, but they keep coming back. They keep getting resubmitted. They adjust them and they massage them and they come back. We have a condition of the buildings that gets behind, and you wonder, because the people voted down on a referendum, but the Board of Ed had an autonomous budget. So they didn't have to spend the money that they had dedicated toward maintenance because they didn't have to. So a lot of the conditions of those buildings were as a result of that. I'm so frustrated by the things that happened in this last referendum. It gets voted down the first time around, massage it back, bring it back to life again, and bring it back, and then people take these liberties and it passes. What Mr. Young was talking about was on the ready-to-use charge. I agree 100%, getting back to the water pollution control. and to eliminate the $200,000 on the billing. I don't know how people expect the taxpayers and voters of this town to keep paying increased taxes and increased fees for things that they just pile on. And I'm going to give you, I'm not crying, but I'm going to give you a little thing that happened to me. We got a 2.8% increase in Social Security, right? Anybody on Social Security up there? 2.8%, right? But the Medicare Part A and Part B, for me, went up $57 a month. That's $684 more a year. Just so they give it to you in this hand and take it more than double away in this hand. So just so you know where the taxpayers are and you wonder why the taxpayers are falling behind in certain things. I don't know. I'm so frustrated that I think we maybe need to go back to a selectman form of government. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Anyone else like to speak for the council for the first time? Anyone else for the second time? George? 3 minutes, George, this time. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Just letting you know.
At the council meeting on November 15, 2018, there was approval to transfer funds of $100,804 to cover the addition of 3 full-time EMS positions. When I looked at the composition of these costs, I noticed that $60,934 of that amount was for salaries. It was good to see that the payroll taxes were calculated correctly. However, I was shocked to see that the health medical insurance was $35,000, or 57.6% of the salaries, whereas the 2019 budget for EMS on page 162 was approximately 25% of salaries. How is this possible? In addition, you have more salaries and costs, so shouldn't there be more charges for services or less general funds transferred? What am I missing? Also, why are there no additional workman's comp expenses budgeted on page 164? In reviewing the adopted 2019 EMS budget of $2.8 million on pages 162 to 165, the Social Security and Medicare tax for the approved budget was the same as the proposed budget, resulting in $6,400 over budget. In addition, the proposed budget had 6.3%, or $113,382 for workman's compensation expense. The approved budget reduced salaries by $155,524 with no change in the workman's compensation expense. I'm not convinced that any one person is looking in this area. I'm not asking for changes for what has already been done and approved, but I am asking that on a going forward basis, the comments made are looked at so we can do the best possible job of getting figures for the budget and giving the directors tools to prepare these budgets, such as correct payroll tax and workman's compensation costs, health insurance costs, etc., where applicable. Surely the Finance Department could create a form with certain fixed costs or percentages given to the directors if there is not one already done. As we look to the next budgetary session, I would like to comment on a letter dated October 15, 2018, sent from the Finance Director, John Wilcox, to elderly disabled homeowners, indicating that town may have to consider not providing the matching credit for the July 2019 tax year. This is part of the state's tax relief for certain elderly or totally disabled homeowners, mandated by the state of Connecticut but no longer funded by them. The credit can be up to $1,500 on some real estate property tax bills per year. This year, the assessor's office indicated that there were 511 residents who received this benefit. I recently spoke at the Commission on Aging meeting on November 15, 2018, and asked them to also support asking the town council to continue paying this benefit. I then heard that someone wanted to put a lien on the home of those getting the credit so that upon their death or moving, the credit would be paid back. I urge the council to leave the money in the budget to provide the credit and not even consider liens to pay it back. We have one former council member and one current council member who will be representing us at the state. Perhaps we could convince them to get the funds restored by the state to their mandated program. The state's Commission on Fiscal Stability and Economic Growth has recommended extending the Connecticut sales tax in 2019 to legal, accounting, and tax preparation services. This will affect all of us. I don't know if you remember, but it was tried about 20 years ago and did not last long. Speaking of the 2 former council members who will be our representatives at the incoming sessions in January, we should ask them to vote no for this. Finally, related to the assessor's office, I saw on TV recently that another Connecticut town, which I believe was Hamden, was looking at car registrations to get the town's fair share of property taxes. What, if anything, is Enfield doing? Because there are many cars at homes with out-of-state plates. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, George. Good time. Anyone else like to speak for the council for the second time? Hearing none, I declare public communications closed. Move on to item number 8, council communications. Anyone have any? Councilman Bosco?
Yeah, through the mayor to the town manager. Can we have Donald take a look at Post Office Road? I mean, that thing is so bumpy. And the catch basins, I think, are lower than what they're supposed to be, or the manhole covers. I mean, it just, before our warranty is up, I think we need to look at that. Thank you.
Councilor Arnone. Thank you, Councilor Bosco.
Duly noted, George. And that's what I was going to touch upon tonight. I tonight handed in my resignation, and will be starting my new assignment at the state on January 3rd. And I just wanted to officially say goodbye to this council and councils past and present that I've just loved working with. And each and every one of you, we walk out that door, and after our disagreements, well, I hope we are friends. And that's what I've strived for in the last 7 years, is to have a little bipartisan bickering going on at times.
All right.
And it's good and it's healthy, and I'm really going to miss this, and I'm going to miss the exchanges with the residents, but I will be back, and I'll be sitting in that seat doing some public communications when you least expect it. So I'll try to keep this council updated, and you can always call me. You all have my cell phone number, and you're welcome to give me a call with any concerns. The residents also, please call me. We need to stay in touch, which is something that's going to be the toughest thing of leaving this council, because you're so much in touch, and I don't want to lose that in the future. So I thank you all for being a part of my life, and I'll be back, and hopefully we can do some good things together on the state level, and for staff too. Staff is very close to my heart through all this. They've always been responsive and helped us when we needed something or questions asked, and all town managers previous also too. As much as we've been a bug to them sometimes, they've always come through. So I thank staff also. So and I'm looking forward to the next assignment. So with that, I'll say goodbye.
Thank you very much, sir. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Thank you, Mr. Young, for your report. I'm one of the town councilors who believes that we shouldn't be up here maintaining people's assets. I think that, when a neighbor is struggling and they are paying their taxes and we are maintaining the assets of the next house down, that I think eventually the town needs to be made whole. I mean, most people have enough value in their home, they can live in their home for 40 years. It's just something that I feel that we have to start to be fair and equitable and start looking at really what are we doing. And sometimes we are maintaining an asset rather than just helping a person. I fully believe in helping people, but not maintaining their assets.
Thank you. Councilor Falk.
I want to thank Tom for his many years of service. Thank you, Tom. And I have served on the Enfield Together Coalition, which Tom is co-chairman of that. And he is committed to not leave that organization. Even though he's going to the state, he'll still be involved here at the town level.
I actually applied for the Public Health Committee, so I hope to be calling you a lot.
All right.
Keeping
Look
in touch
forward
with
to
that
it.
Anyone else? Councilor Muller.
I just want to let everyone know the 4th of July dinner dance will be held on Saturday, March 2nd, 2019 at the Old Country Deli, 6 p.m. to midnight. Also, the Enfield Hua and the Enfield Dog Park are having a fundraiser at Red Robin this Wednesday, December 5th from 5 to 8 p.m.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councilor Crissati.
Yeah, I have a few things to mention. First of all, Jack, thanks for your comments as usual. Mr. Young, thank you for your report here. It's very factual, and we will take a look at some of the items that you did mention in here. On another note, last night, Torchlight Parade, hundreds of residents lined Route 5, marched with the mayor last night, and it was a wonderful evening. And, you know, we talk about nice things that this town has, and, you know, this is another example of our town of Enfield doing things nice for the community, doing things in which a lot of people were very happy with. A lot of children were happy out there last night. I'd also like to recognize the Allied Rehabilitation Services Athletic Program. The Enfield Stars last week competed in their winter holiday bowling tournament, and many of the teams won medals and represented our town with class. I just want to also mention that in the winter of 2019, we have many programs that are picking up with the Special Olympics. We have swimming starting, snowshoeing, basketball, and indoor track. So for those people who are involved in the program, those will be starting up soon. There's also 2 young men playing for the Connecticut Chasers hockey program, which is started by Kelly Chase, a former player for the Hartford Whalers and the St. Louis Blues. And this program does take place in Simsbury. It's nice to know that we have a couple of kids from Enfield playing in that program. I had also some discussions with some of the residents down at South River Street. They went to the workshop for the Thompsonville Rivergate zoning districts. They were very pleased with the work that has been done. The residents are happy down there. So that's good work there. So I just wanted to mention to that. We had many residents did reach out to me stating they were very pleased with what's going on. So I just wanted to come out publicly and state that. And I also want to recognize Maria for your fine job that you have done stepping in as our acting town manager. I think town attorney, well, manager, you know.
It's all the same.
Same thing. You guys are a great team together. So I'm just giving you a little shout out here because you have been very thorough with everything that you have done. And you're very transparent for everybody and very knowledgeable and personable on top of that. So keep up that great work. And I will, you know, nominate you for the next town attorney. I just want to be public with that.
Councilor Ungary.
I just want to say, Tom,
That's all I have to say.
Tom, it's been a privilege to work with you. Good luck in your new position. I also wanted to ask Joe, if people are interested in going to the 4th of July fundraisers, do you have tickets, or where can they get tickets to go?
Yes, I have tickets, or any member of the 4th of July committee has them.
Okay.
You can get that on their website.
Yeah, on their website as well.
What's the name of the website?
EnfieldFourthofJuly.org.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I just have one thing. We talked about it a little while ago, and it's the Skidco Road, where Skidco and Leary, and it's being used as a cut-through from Broadbrook to 190. And the neighbors have complained about the speed of the traffic. And I know from watching some of the P&Z meetings that that's also a problem with the development in that area. And I want to know how we would go about, I don't know, being a little bit proactive. They have that, looks like it was not a gas station, but a auto repair store there on the corner. And I know they always look for development there, and it's always the traffic through that neighborhood will be problematic. So as we develop that, maybe we can, you know, get a head start on looking at how we can make it better for the residents there. And motion to suspend the rules and move items A1, A2, B1 through B12, D1, D2, E, F, G, H, I, and J to miscellaneous and proceed to vote.
Motion to suspend the rules, seconded by Councilor Falk. Any discussion on the motion?
Thanks, Mike.
Hearing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed, abstentions? We have 11 in favor, 0 against. Anyone else like to speak? Councilor Davis?
Tom, good luck. We're going to miss you. And thanks a lot for being a great mentor. Appreciate it. So, and congratulations on your election.
I do.
Did you? Yeah, I'm not done yet, Bob. Come on, no, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. George, thank you again for your very detailed report. I'm wondering if you are on the town payroll. You do amazing work. Thank you for all the time that you give for that. And Jack, thank you for always coming and doing all your research and keeping us up to speed on everything. Do a shout out to the JFK for the Rachel Challenge with the turkey trot. They raised over $700 for the food shelf. It was really great to watch all the kids running, the teachers. Mr. Crosati's baseball there is one of the giant sponsors, so I'd like to say thank you to the Crosati baseball there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also to thank everyone for the type 1 diabetes walk that was done by Anna, one of the teenagers in town. Thanks to everybody that came out and supported her. She collected a lot of items that will go to people that are in need of type 1 diabetes stuff and cannot afford it. Also a reminder, December 15th, we have Wreaths Across America going on, and also earlier in that morning, we have the Rachel Challenge pancake breakfast with Santa. Will be happening that morning. The past weekend, the Cookies for Camouflage, which pretty much I think all of us kind of was there. Great job that Lori and everybody does in the Enfield Hood. That was, you know, everybody showed up, the town came together, and I forgot the amount. It was just a little bit shorter than last year's shipment going overseas to the troops. So it was a great amount. And then this past, what was it, just this, yeah, the other day, the Safe Grad, thanks to everybody on that committee and everybody in the community that came out to support our Safe Grad for Enfield High. And I'm sure they'll have a few more things going on. So just thanks to everybody that likes to keep coming out and supporting our young, soon-to-be our leaders that are coming through the community and growing up. Thanks.
Just one final thing. You know, Tom, I wish you the best of luck to you in state legislature. Being your campaign manager, we expect nothing but the best from you, and I'm sure you'll represent our town well. So, best of luck, Tom.
Go ahead, Councilor Denny.
George, thank you for getting a hold of Ken Boulette and not me. No, usually you call me, but I want to thank you publicly.
And again, Tom, I wish you the best of luck. I mean, if you think about the last year, I mean, we balanced the budget with a $10 million hole, which again, we didn't send out a supplemental tax bill, which I know we don't get enough credit for, but it's important. That'll help you, hopefully, when you go down there and you're sitting on appropriations and they're not spending our money wisely. And I'm looking forward to you to come back when we discuss tolls, because I'll have a lot to say about it. And I publicly announced that I am against tolls. And oh, by the way, if it does come through, we want to make sure we get an accounting from the federal government of any money that is on that has to get repaid on 91 for the federal funds if the toll goes in. So, but anyways, best of luck. That'll be in my attorney report. But I wish you the best of luck. Good serving with you. And again, I wish you again very, very best of luck at the state. George, I appreciate you bringing up the elderly tax credit. Again, to your point, that's what happens when sometimes there's, when people talk about the $10 million cut, there also were a lot of other cuts that went on that we had to absorb. And just to be clear for folks, the reason why the letter went out when it did, we've kind of figured that out through the budget last year, that, again, there was kind of that hole in the budget, and the council wisely said we're going to fully fund the tax credit, including the state portion, which, again, we funded. We wanted to make sure we just gave folks a chance to understand that, again, there's a possibility we may not be able to fund the full amount. That's why that letter went out in October. So we were completely transparent with the residents, who I'm sure that credit means a lot to. And so that was the purpose of the letter, was to just give folks a heads up that, possible, depends how the budget goes. And then if we have to make tough decisions, which we're going to have to do depending on what happens with the funding from the state, that those are things that we felt to be upfront about. Not saying it's going to be cut. We're just giving everyone the opportunity when it comes time for the budget to voice your approval for it. So again, appreciate that. And that was the purpose of that letter. I want to also I know it's a cute sign, but I will have something for public. when I drive by the Crack building and I see the sign that says, "We love Enfield kids" or Enfield students, I gotta admit, it rubs me the wrong way. And I have to admit it because I understand how the funding that the local taxpayers are spending for Crack, they're using our tax dollars to advertise to take our own students. I'm sorry, that rubs me the wrong way. And I will have the last 6 years of fund, that the amount of the local taxpayers have paid, into Crack, into that funding. I will bring that to the next meeting. And it's it's roughly around $8 to $9 million that come out of our local budget over the last 6 to 7 years. So I understand it's a cute sign, and I have a sense of humor. However, I understand the impact that has to our budget. And so I want to make sure that I publicly release that to people next time. I want to welcome in closing the new Kid Mayor, Olivia Nucio, did a fantastic job last night at the torchlight parade. She counted down 10 and was able to flick the switch, and the tree went on without a hitch. So the Kid Mayor knows what she's doing, and she's already going to be well ahead of the current mayor. So yeah, we welcome, and I'm hoping we won't say anything. I will bring it to leadership. We do have hopefully a nice little surprise for the outgoing Kid Mayor, who's done a great job, and for the new incoming Kid Mayor that we'll discuss maybe at a next council meeting. So more to come. Thank you very much. Moving on to Town Manager report.
I have no formal report, and as we had indicated previously, the PAR report will be every other meeting, so it will be included next time. But any other questions?
Any questions for the Town Manager? Just my only question, Chris. I know it's not we're not involved, but maybe by the next council meeting, if there's anything, just a brief for your minute, just what happens with the bid on the 10th for the mall.
Oh,
just
certainly.
Any kind of formal update. I'm sure folks have been getting a lot of questions on it. If we can have whatever happens or whoever bids on it, if it's public, we can just announce on it on the 17th.
All right.
Moving on to the town attorney, item 10.
Good evening.
Or the town manager, excuse me.
Good evening, everyone. I don't have a formal report tonight.
Any questions for the town attorney?
She's smart. She'll quit while she's ahead. And Bob, for the record, I hired her.
Thank you, Maria. And moving on to item 11, report of any special committees. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Facilities met, and there's just a little bit of metal trim still to be done at the Henry Barnard School if it ever stops raining. The other thing, I guess it's sort of a heads up. We have multiple roofs that are leaking that are patched and they're, on their last breath. And we have the sinking fund that wasn't fully funded. And we're looking to get ready to do another section on the Henry Barnard, start the Eli Whitney, and then look to do the Hazardville Memorial. We need to have funding in place for February because we need to make the resolution in February that the town of Enfield has enough monies to fund the full project, even though we get our 70% back. We haven't received our final bill, so it's 60 days from when we pay our bill and we submit everything. So mid-February, we should be getting somewhere back about $300,000, which should go back into the sinking fund. This is not enough money for us to move forward to be ready in the summer. It was not very pleasant to push our staff, our consultants, everybody on the planet to try to get some roofing done in the fall. I'm asking through the mayor to the town manager that he look for probably about $750,000 to somehow either put it in the sinking fund or get it into a CIP so that we can get our 1/3 to 1/2 of a roof at the Eli Whitney, do another 1/3 to perhaps, if the pricing is really good, finish the Henry Barnard roof. So I'm asking the council to sit and think about, what we've been doing and how we need to do this, because we can't move forward with anything else until our roofs are done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other reports of special committees? Hearing none. Item number 12, old business. Item on page 1, items A, 1 or 2. I believe we have no appointments. On page 2, items 3 through 16, appointments, we have none. On page 3, 17 through 20 of town council appointments, we have none. Item B, appointments from the town manager, items 1 through 10, none. On top of page 4, again, town manager appointments, 11 through 14, we have none. Item C, discussion resolution to adopt the amendment to the Enfield Town Code. We have a amendment later, or resolution later, to set the public hearing for this, which will be on the 17th. So this remains tabled unless anyone has any questions, or if not, this remain tabled. We'll vote to set the public hearing later. Item 13, new business. Items A, there's no consent agenda, excuse me. No, item B, appointments by town council. Again, none under new business. Item C, town manager appointments, none under new business. And item D, again, any P&Z council approved appointments, there's none under new business. Item 14, items for discussion, the consent agenda, items 1 and 2 have been moved to miscellaneous. Item B, appointments of the town council, again, under items for discussion, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 have all been moved to miscellaneous. Item C, appointments, town manager, again, excuse me, appointments, town manager, council approved, there's none. Item D, P&Z commission, appointed, council approved, there are none. D, 1 and 2, correct? We don't have those appointments yet, we haven't got a recommendation, okay? And now we move to, again, items E, F, G, and H, I, and J have been moved to miscellaneous. So item 15, we're at miscellaneous, and item A, the consent agenda, discussion resolution for transfer of funds of $5,000 to youth services and $383 to the Youth Service Stopped Act grant, both in the consent agenda. These basically just grants that we're right?
Yes, the first one was money for an opioid outreach program. We received the grant money, so this would be transferred now for expenditure. And then the second item is about $300+ they had left in their fringe benefit account, which we moved to travel for use within their budget.
So it's on the consent agenda. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Items 1 or 2? Hearing none by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? We have 11 in favor, 0 against. Under miscellaneous appointments, item 1. Board of Appeals, it's a reappointment. Do I have, of Kelly Helmer, do I have a nomination? Or do I have a? There's not out there?
It's not late.
Oh, it's not late. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, it's got to be. Sorry about that. Yep, my bad. I got to remember the. Sorry, shouldn't have been moved. Our bad. Yeah, sorry about that. Item number 2, Commission on Aging, term of Michael Arnone, expires on 1/1/19, reappointment until 1/1/2021.
Do you mind if I get this one? Yeah, I'd like to nominate Michael Arnone.
A nomination by Councilor Arnone, seconded by Councilor Denny. Do I have a motion to close nominations? So moved. Councilor Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Councilor Denny. All those in favor of closing nomination by show of hands. Those opposed, we have 11 in favor, 0 against. Any discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Sakala.
Michael Arnone?
Councilor Crissati.
4.
Councilor Davis.
4.
Councilor Denny.
Michael Arnone.
Councilor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Councilor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Michael Arnone.
Councilor Ungar.
4.
Councilor Arnone.
4.
Councilor Bosco.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item number 3, Commission on Aging, term of office of Priscilla Linehan, expires on 1/1/19, reappointment till 1/1/2021. Do we have appointment to reappoint? Excuse me, we have a motion to reappoint.
Motion to reappoint.
By Councilor Arnone, seconded by Councilor Falk. Do I have a motion to close nominations?
Move.
By Councilor Denny, seconded by Councilor Falk. All those in favor of closing nominations by a show of hands? Opposed? We have 11 in favor and 0 against. Any discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Sakala.
Priscilla Linehan?
Councilor Crissati.
4.
Councilor Davis.
4.
Councilor Denny.
Priscilla Linehan.
Councilor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Councilor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Priscilla Linehan.
Councilor Ungar.
4.
Councilor Arnone.
4.
Councilor Bosco. There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item number 4, Commission on Aging, the term of office of David Goyette expires on 1/1/19, a reappointment until 1/1/2021. Do I have a motion for a reappointment of David Goyette? By Councilor Crissati, seconded by Councilor Sakala. Do I have a motion to close nominations? Motion. By Councilor Denny, seconded by Councilor Crissati. All those in favor of closing nominations by show of hands? All those opposed? Any abstentions? 11 in favor, 0 against. Do I have any discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Sakala.
David Goyette?
Councilor Crissati.
4.
Councilor Davis.
4.
Councilor Denny.
David Goyette.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
David Gayette.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Again, appointments, item number 5, the Enfield Beautification Committee. The term of office of Tim Norris expires on 12/1/2018. Reappointment would be for 12/1/2021. Do I have a motion for the reappointment of Tim Norris? By Counselor Arnone, seconded by Counselor Deputy Mayor Suzak. Do I have a motion to close nominations?
Motion.
By Counselor Denny, seconded by Deputy Mayor Suzak. All those in favor, by show of hands, of closing nominations. Opposed, 11 in favor, 0 against. Discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Sakala.
Tim Norris?
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
Tim Norris.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Tim Norris.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco. 4. There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Again, item 6, under, for appointments, the Enfield Beautification Committee, the term in office of Deborah Gaskill expires on 12/1/2018. Reappointment would be through 12/1/2021. Do I have a motion to reappoint Deborah?
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Ungary. Do I have a motion to close nominations? By Counselor Muller, seconded by Counselor Crissati. All those in favor of closing nominations by show of hands. Opposed, abstentions, 11 in favor and 0 against. Any discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Sakala.
Deborah Gaskell?
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
Deborah Gaskell.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Deborah Gaskell.
Counselor Ungary.
Deborah Gaskell.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item number 7, the Ethics Commission. The term of the office of Carl Swanson Jr. expires on 10/31/2018. Reappointment would be till 10/31/2020. Do I have a motion to reappoint Carl Swanson?
So moved.
By Deputy Mayor by Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Arnone. All those in favor of closing nomination, or excuse me, to have a motion to close nomination by Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Denny. All those in favor of closing nominations by show of hands. Those opposed, any abstentions? We got 11 in favor, 0 against. Do I have any discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Sakala.
Carl Swenson?
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
Carl Swenson.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Carl Swenson.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
In item number 8, the Library Board of Trustees, a term in office of Marion Marusa, sorry if I ruined your name, expires 12/31/2018. Reappointment would be till 12/1/2021. Do I have a motion, or now, excuse me, a motion to reappoint by Counselor Muller? Second by Counselor Bosco. Do I have a motion to close nominations?
Motion.
By Counselor Denny, seconded by Counselor Crissati. All those in favor of closing nominations by show of hands. Those opposed? We have 11 in favor, 0 against. Any discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Sakala.
Marion Maruka.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
Marion Maruka.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Marion Maruka.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
We move on to item 11, which would be the Zoning Board of Appeals alternate. The term of office of Catherine Plopper expires on 12/31/2018. Reappointment would be till 12/1/2022. Do I have a motion to reappoint?
So moved.
Counselor Falk?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Arnone. Do I have a motion to close nominations?
Motion.
By Counselor Denny. Seconded by Counselor Crissati. All those in favor of closing nominations by show of hands. Those opposed? Any extension? 11 in favor, 0 against. Do I have any discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Sakala.
Catherine Plopper?
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Catherine Plopper.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
So item 12, we just have a letter of resignation for your packet. So that'll be an appointment we'll have to make moving forward. Item C, appointments, town manager. I assume we have none. Item D, P&Z appointed from the council. We have none. Items 1 and 2 still remain on the table, the Capital Region representatives. Moving on to item E, Okay, let me make sure I got it right. Okay, this item E under miscellaneous, discussion resolution establishing a Town Council Board of Education Joint Security Committee. Whereas the Enfield Town Council and the Board of Education would like to establish a security committee, and whereas the committee will develop and oversee enhancing security improvements to the physical environment of the schools and provide for the review and update of safety protocols and emergency procedures, and whereas the committee's membership will consist of the town manager, the chief of police, 3 counselors, the superintendent of schools, 3 Board of Education members, a security consultant, a fire chief, and anyone else deemed obligatory by the state of Connecticut school security and safety plan standards. Resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby establish a joint security committee with the Enfield Board of Education.
So moved.
By Councilor Arnone, seconded by Councilor Falk. Real quick, any discussion?
Well, we previously had this board established, and it was dissolved, but to comply with the state of Connecticut security plan and to apply for grants, which we'll be doing on the next item, we have to have this in place. So we'll pass it tonight, then you can make the appointments at a future date so that we are in compliance.
Okay. Any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Item F under miscellaneous, resolution authorizing the Board of Education to apply for a grant through the State of Connecticut Department of Homeland Security. Resolved that the Enfield Town Council authorizes the Enfield Board of Education to submit a grant application to the State of Connecticut Department of Homeland Security as part of the School Security Competitive Grant Program.
So moved.
By Councilor Falk, by Councilor Crisati. This is just the grant we're applying for, that's set up to the committee. I don't know if you want if there's anything specific.
No, basically, the cover memo enunciate, we've been applying for these, we've been very successfully receiving them, and Mr. Harrison is applying for this next grant. It's about $101,000. If awarded, we pay it up front, and then we're reimbursed by 70%. We also have other funding available, too, to make up the difference. So it's been an evolving and revolving grant process that we're taking advantage of the state funds to make our schools safer.
Perfect. Roll call, please.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Moving on to item G under miscellaneous, discussion resolution to settle pending tax appeal. Resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby authorize the acting town attorney, Maria S. Elderson or her designee, to settle the outstanding tax assessment appeal in the following action. Bell Site Development, LLC versus the Town of Enfield, docket number HHB-CV-18-6046129S. The fair market value of the property known as 90 Alden Avenue to be $200,000 for the grand lists of October 1, 2016 and October 1, 2017, prepared by the Office of the Town Attorney, was prepared on November 21st, 2018.
So moved.
By Councilor Falk.
Second.
Second by Councilor Arnone. I don't know, any questions? I don't know if we discussed this at the last meeting. Anyone have any questions for Chris? Or, excuse me, the Town Attorney, I apologize. Nope. No. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
20.
There's 11 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Moving on to item H under miscellaneous, a resolution to approve First Amendment Assessment Agreement, the First Amendment Assessment Agreement for 25 Bacon Road. Whereas on January 27, 2017, the town and WE 25 Bacon Road LLC, a limited liability company organized pursuant to the laws of the state of Delaware, execute a tax assessment agreement. Should I say state of Connecticut? Before I keep reading? Should I say state of Delaware? Or am I? Oh, it's okay, got it, yep. Execute a tax assessment agreement for the land and buildings at 25 Bacon Road and shown as Lot 0005 on Town Assessor's Map 095 and Lot 0065 on the Town Assessor's Map 094 in the Town of Enfield. And whereas on June 26, 2018, WE 25 Bacon Road LLC conveyed Lot 0005 and Lot 0065 to PPF WE 25 Bacon Road LLC, a limited liability company organized pursuant to the laws of the state of Delaware, and whereas PPF WE 25 Bacon Road LLC intends to revise the property lines of the above referenced lots, and whereas the property line revision will decrease lot 005's area 0005's area from 282 acres to 121 acres, and we will increase lots 0065 area from 20 acres to 181 acres. And whereas PPF WE 25 Bacon Road LLC has requested that the tax assessment agreement be amended to apply only to lot 0005 and that lot 0065 be removed therefrom, and whereas the proposed amendment will also transfer the terms and conditions of the above referenced tax assessment agreement to PPF WE 25 Bacon Road LLC. Now therefore be it resolved that the town manager, Christopher W. Bromson, is empowered to enter into the First Amendment to tax assessment agreement attached hereto in its name and on behalf of the town of Enfield with PPF WE 25 Bacon Road LLC, prepared by the Office of the Town Attorney, November 21st, 2018. By Councilor Muller, seconded by Councilor Crisati. Chris, I don't know, real quick for the...
No, this is something that was requested of the Win Stanley Corporation. They've done a very good job in town of developing. They wanted to separate the parcels out. The tax implication really has no impact on us. Actually, it's beneficial for a short period of time, but it's going to hopefully enable them to attract some candidates for the parcel now that it is separated. And I actually talked to Adam Winstanley today, who was very optimistic for what the future will hold, and he was very appreciative to the council for the quick action, and wanted me to extend my thanks to the town attorney's office that put this to the top of the heap and did it. It makes a big difference, he said, when they can get a quick response to their inquiries, because it's easier for them to market the property. And as he said, somebody comes forward, they're not caught short. This is already done for them. So he was very appreciative and wanted me to extend his thanks to you and to the town attorney.
Any questions from town council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Sakala. 4. Councilor Crisati.
4.
Councilor Davis.
4.
Councilor Denny.
4.
Councilor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Councilor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Councilor Ungary.
4.
Councilor Arnone.
4.
Councilor Bosco.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Item I, under miscellaneous, resolution setting a public hearing to amend Enfield Town Code, Chapter 14, Sections 14-171 through 14-187, inclusive, commonly referred to as the Property Maintenance Ordinance. Whereas the town staff has recommended that the above reference ordinance be amended, and whereas the recommended amendments have been submitted to the town council, now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council will hold a public hearing in the Enfield Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, on Monday, December 17, 2018, at 6:50 p.m. to allow interested residents an opportunity to express their opinions regarding the amendment of Chapter 14, Section 14-171 through 14-187, inclusive of the Town Code, prepared on November 28, 2018, by the Town Attorney's Office.
So moved.
By Councilor Arnone, seconded by Councilor Falk. My only question, and I will look, do we need more than 650?
10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
I mean, we had a decent amount of folks last time we had this public hearing. I don't know what we have on the agenda, but maybe we can, if we don't have I don't know what we have scheduled, but can we move this to 6:30? Or we don't have, or we have too much already?
I didn't even look to see what time they set it, but we can certainly accommodate. That's short, I would imagine, given the interest in this. It probably would be better to have a little more flexibility.
Yeah, I think so.
We can move it out.
Unless anyone, do we need to amend this now? I make an amendment to move this to 6 from on Enfield, Connecticut, on Monday, December 17, 2018, at 6:30 p.m. as opposed to 6:50.
I'll second it.
Amendment made, seconded by Councilor Denny. Any discussion on amendment? Hearing none, by show of hands, all those in favor of the amendment? Those opposed? Any abstentions? So we have 11-0 on the amendment. Now the main motion as amended. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Sakala.
4.
Councilor Crisati.
4.
Councilor Davis.
4.
Councilor Denny.
4.
Councilor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Councilor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Councilor Ungary.
4.
Councilor Arnone.
4.
Councilor Bosco.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Moving on to item J, resolution under miscellaneous, resolution amending the ETV production job description. Resolved that in accordance with Chapter 7, Section 2 of the Town Charter, the Enfield Town Council does hereby amend the job description for the position of ETV production. It was submitted on November 15, 2018 by our Director of Human Resources, Steve Belinda.
So moved.
By Councilor Falk. Second. By Councilor Denny. This was again in a long line of job description updates and reorgs that we've been going through. Any questions for anyone? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak. 4. Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Moving on to item 16. Does anyone from the public like to speak for the council at this time? Lucian. Welcome, sir.
Evening, Lucian Lefebvre, 54 Kimberly Drive. Just out of curiosity, with the JFK referendum passing, we are now renting boilers to heat the building. Do we have to continue renting them until everything starts, or can that be expedited to try and save some rental money?
Someone will answer that in
Okay.
council communications.
And
Great
that's all I
question.
had.
Yep, that'll be answered. Anyone else like to speak for the council at this time? Hearing none, I do close public communications closed. We move on to council communications. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
We actually asked that question. When would they get an architect in place? The first phase would, of course, be to design the building. And once the building is designed, then they can calculate the capacity of what they would need for all the mechanicals, and the mechanicals would be in phase 1. But until you know where everything's going to be and how everything's going to lay out, it's not going to be as simple as rolling something in and rolling something out. But I'm hoping that they can at least over the summer, address the asbestos and other things that are in there, so that when they can get in there, that the mechanical room will get up and running as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like council communications? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, sorry. Too late. Sorry.
No adjourning. No adjourning. I have to thank Tom. Tom, you've been a great fellow counselor.
I think, yeah, we got to check the rules. Read the tape back.
Every time I get assigned a committee, there sits Tom. So I think we kind of went through a lot and did a lot of things, and just send us some money from the state, because we send a lot to the state. Thank you, Tom.
All right, now, motion to adjourn.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Councilor Denny, second by Councilor Casati. All those in favor, by show of hands. Thank you, we're adjourned. Good night, everyone.